I'm a ranger in the Smoky Mountains. Nights out here are supposed to be quiet. Just wind in the trees and the occasional owl. But last summer, the silence started to feel wrong. Like the forest was holding its breath. And I learned something you shouldn't ever learn. People who fall asleep in these woods don't always wake up. I'll tell you how I know. But once you hear it, you'll understand why I don't sleep much anymore. The Smokies stretch out in ridges and folds, a rolling sea of green that looks soft from a distance, but swallows men whole once they're inside. I'd worked patrol for years. Rescues, lost hikers, the usual drunken campers who needed to be escorted back to their sites. Nothing I couldn't handle. Nothing that kept me awake at night until the Wilcox family disappeared. They checked in on a Friday. 2 adults, 3 kids, a golden retriever, bouncing happily on its leash. I remember the father's handshake, strong and confident. The mother smiled, like she was relieved to finally be away from city noise. They set up in a designated site near a creek bend, one I'd walked past hundreds of times. Safe, ordinary. The next morning, their tent was still there. The fire pit had cooled. The dog's leash lay slack across the picnic table. But there wasn't a soul around. No footprints leaving camp. No food missing. Just 5 sleeping bags zipped open, empty and cold. The dog was gone too. You might think bears, wolves, some predator. But you don't know the Smokies like I do. Predators leave signs, claw marks, scat, drag trails. There was nothing, just silence, thick and pressing, like the trees were hiding something. We searched for 3 days. Volunteers, dogs, helicopters, not a trace. No scent, no body, no belongings left behind. The Wilcox family had vanished, as if they'd walked into the fog and dissolved. That should have been the end of it. Just another unsolved case. Tragic, but explainable if you're willing to swallow the right kind of lie. Except it wasn't. 2 weeks later, another group, college kids this time. Same campsite, same story. They went to bed laughing, singing around a fire, the kind of carefree noise, tents standing open like mouths mid-scream. Sleeping bags, empty. Phones, wallets, backpacks, untouched. That's when the pattern started to claw at me. It wasn't just disappearances. It was how they happened. Every single time, it was after dark. And every single time, it was while they were sleeping. You ever try staying awake all night in a forest? The way shadows move between trees. The way your own heartbeat starts to sound like footsteps. Try it sometime. See how long you last before your body betrays you. That's what I told myself. People just wander. They dream. They sleepwalk. They panic and run. But deep down, I didn't believe it. Because I started noticing something else. On patrol, I'd hear voices at night. Low, hushed, not like campers, but close, right behind me. I'd spin my flashlight. Nothing there. Sometimes I'd see shapes just outside the beam, darker than the dark itself. Not moving like animals, standing still, watching. And once, I swear this is true, I came across a camp just before dawn. 2 tents, 1 fire burned down to coals. A young couple zipped up inside. I could hear them breathing. I told myself, good, they made it through the night. Normal, safe. I came back 2 hours later. The tents were unzipped, the coals were cold, and the sleeping bags empty. I touched them, still warm. Do you understand what that means? Whatever takes them, it doesn't wait long after you close your eyes. The other rangers don't want to talk about it. Some laugh it off. Others change the subject, quick, like they're afraid saying the wrong words will call it closer. But I know the truth, because I stayed at one of those campsites myself. I sat there, alone, in the dark, fighting sleep while the trees leaned closer. And I heard something move right outside the tent. Something that didn't breathe like a man, didn't step like an animal. And when I finally dared to look, when I finally looked out of that tent flap, I expected to see a raccoon. Maybe a black bear nosing around for scraps. I even told myself that's what it had to be. But the ground was bare. Just pine needles and the silver sheen of moonlight. Except the air was wrong. You ever feel a room after someone leaves? How it still holds the weight of them, like their presence lingers in the walls. That's what the clearing felt like. Heavy, occupied, but the campsite was empty. I didn't move for what felt like an hour. My flashlight was in my hand, but I didn't dare click it on. Because the dark out here, it isn't just absence of light. It feels alive. Flicking a beam into it is like prodding something that doesn't want to be touched. And then I heard it. Not footsteps, not breathing, not an animal shifting in the brush. A zipper. The sound was faint, but unmistakable. Metal teeth sliding against one another. A tent being opened. Slow, careful. Like someone didn't want to wake the sleepers inside. Except I was alone in that clearing. I wanted to believe it was an echo from somewhere else. But echoes don't carry like that in the Smokies. They get swallowed up by the trees. This zipper was close, no more than 20 feet from where I sat. I whispered into the dark, "Who's there?" Nothing. The zipper sound stopped. The silence after was worse than the noise itself. It pressed in, thick and endless, like the forest was waiting for me to close my eyes. I didn't. Not that night. By dawn, the feeling had lifted, like fog burning off. I stepped out, legs stiff, jaw aching from clenching my teeth. The woods looked normal again. Sunlight speared through the canopy. Birds trilled. But when I walked the perimeter of that campsite, I found something that didn't belong. A leash. Frayed, stained dark at the handle, half buried under leaves, as if the forest had been trying to pull it down. The Wilcox family's dog. I brought it back to the ranger station, set it on the desk. My supervisor, a man named Ellis, barely looked at it before pushing it aside. Could be from anybody's pet, he muttered. But his hand was shaking. That's when I realized the higher-ups knew more than they let on. Ellis told me to keep quiet, said the park's reputation depended on it. Hikers disappear in every forest, he said. It's nature. That's the risk people take. But I couldn't let it go. Because it wasn't just disappearances. It was the way it happened. Always at night. Always in their sleep. And something else. The campers who vanished, they never screamed. You'd think someone would fight back, make a sound, leave some trace of panic. But they didn't. They went silent, like the moment their heads hit the pillow, they were already gone. That thought gnawed at me. I couldn't eat, couldn't rest. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined cold fingers unzipping my tent, slipping into the dark. I started doing rounds differently. Instead of hiking during the day, I stayed awake at night, patrolling the campsites when the forest was at its quietest. I wanted to catch it, whatever it was, in the act. And one night, I did. It was a Tuesday in late July. A young couple had pitched camp by the creek. I'd spoken with them earlier in the evening. College kids, nervous about bears, asking if it was safe to hang their food from the trees. They laughed when I told them yes. They had no idea what they should have been afraid of. Around midnight, I came back. Their fire was still smouldering. The creek babbled softly nearby. I crouched low, keeping to the tree line, not wanting to spook them. Then I saw movement. Something standing at the edge of their tent. Tall, thinner than a man, but with shoulders that seemed to slope forward unnaturally, like it was bending over without bending. I blinked hard thinking maybe it was just a trick of shadow. But no, it was real. It didn't touch the tent, didn't lean close. It just stood there, listening. And then, God help me, it began to crouch, slow, deliberate, lowering itself until its head was level with the tent flap. I reached for my radio, but froze. If I made a sound, it would know I was there. My throat was dry as sandpaper. My pulse slammed against my ribs. The tent zipper began to move. Soft, smooth, teeth parting, inch by inch. The couple inside stirred. I heard one of them sigh in their sleep. That zipper slid halfway down before I found the strength to move. I snapped on my flashlight and aimed it straight at the thing. What I saw, I almost wish the light hadn't caught it. Its skin wasn't skin. It was the colour of wet ash, stretched too thin, like parchment, ready to tear. The beam reflected in its eyes, but not like a normal reflection. It was as if the light sank into them, swallowed whole, and something deeper looked back. It jerked upright at once, taller than any man I'd seen. Long limbs, folding in impossible ways as it drew back from the tent. The zipper froze half open. The couple inside didn't stir. The thing turned toward me. I can still hear the sound it made when the light hit it. Not a scream, not even a growl, just breath. But it was so loud, so deep, it rattled in my chest like thunder. I should have run. Any sane person would have bolted back to the ranger station. But my legs didn't work. I stood there, with the flashlight trembling in my hand, painting its face in that sickly glow. It didn't blink, didn't move closer. It just watched me. And then, in one movement too fast for my eyes to follow, it was gone. One instant, it filled the clearing. The next, there was only darkness and the whisper of the creek. The couple never woke. I forced myself forward, ripped the tent flap open, ready to drag them out. They lay sprawled in their sleeping bags, chests rising and falling with steady breaths, asleep, completely untouched. But the zipper, it had been undone halfway. I sealed it again, hands shaking, then staggered back into the trees. My flashlight cut weak tunnels through the dark, but every shadow looked alive. I swear I felt it pacing me as I hurried back toward the trail. Each time I turned, there was nothing, but the silence pressed in, heavier than before. By the time I reached the station, dawn was bleeding over the ridges. I slammed the door shut and collapsed into the chair, drenched in sweat. Ellis was waiting. He didn't look surprised. He didn't ask what had happened. He just stared at me for a long while, then said, "You saw it." I wanted to deny it, wanted to call it a dream, a trick of exhaustion. But the words caught in my throat. He knew. Ellis poured 2 cups of coffee, slid one across the desk. Most rangers don't last a year out here, he said. The ones who do, we stop asking questions. That's when he told me something that twisted my stomach, worse than seeing the thing itself. The disappearances, there were more than the public knew. Families that never made it into reports. Solo hikers whose cars were quietly towed away. He said the Park Service buries it because no one would come here otherwise. People need their vacations, Ellis said. They don't need the truth. I stared at him. And the truth is, he looked at me with bloodshot eyes. They come at night. Always at night. Always for the ones who sleep. They? I asked. But he wouldn't answer. Just shook his head and muttered, "You'll learn." For a while, I tried to convince myself it was. All madness. Sleep deprivation. A hallucination born of nerves and shadows. But then, the reports kept piling up. A missing Boy Scout troop. An empty campsite with breakfast still cooking on the fire. And the worst, the ones I found myself. 2 weeks after the creek incident, I came across a campsite in the higher ridges. 4 tents. No people. Not a single shoe print beyond their own. Inside the tents, sleeping bags were unzipped but undisturbed. Flashlights lay dead beside them. Food untouched. It was like they had dissolved into the air. Except for one thing. On the ground between the tents was a ring. A gold band. Dented, streaked with mud. I slipped it into my pocket. Still have it. Sometimes I turn it over in my palm and wonder whose finger it slid from, and if they were awake long enough to know. After that, I started sleeping in my truck. Not at home, not at the station. A truck. Doors locked. Engine ready. But even there, the nights pressed in. Some mornings I woke with the distinct smell of damp earth filling the cab, though the windows were sealed. One morning, I woke with pine needles scattered across the dashboard. I stopped sleeping altogether. But exhaustion doesn't care about fear. It drags you under eventually. And one night, parked on an overlook with the forest stretched out black and endless beneath me, I slipped under. I woke to the sound of a zipper. Not a tent this time. My own jacket. Slowly, carefully, the sound of teeth parting right against my chest. I opened my eyes, heart slamming, and saw nothing. Nothing but darkness outside the glass. But my jacket was half unzipped, the pull tab lying flat against my ribs. I drove until sunrise, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. And when I got back to the station, Ellis wasn't there. His truck was gone. His desk cleared out. No note, no forwarding contact. It was like he'd never existed. But he did. I'm telling you, he did. Because 3 days later, I found his hat. It was lying in the middle of a campsite. No Ellis, no campers, just his ranger hat, soaking wet, brim pressed into the dirt, like someone had tried to bury it. And beside it, beside Ellis's hat, was a footprint. Not a boot, not a shoe. Bare, long, narrow. The toes dug deeper into the mud than the heel. Like whatever made it carried its weight wrong. And there were 2 of them. One pressed into the dirt by the fire pit. The other on top of Ellis's hat. I knelt down, hand hovering above the print, not daring to touch. The air was colder there. I swear it was. The kind of chill that sinks past skin into bone. The campsite was deserted otherwise. No torn tents, no sign of struggle. Just emptiness. As if Ellis and the campers had packed up in the middle of the night and vanished. Except for that hat. I wanted to leave it, to back away and never come near the place again. But I couldn't. I picked it up, mud dripping from the brim, and as soon as I did, I heard it. Breathing. Not mine, not close, but out in the trees. Steady and slow, like something watching me. I spun with my flashlight, beam cutting across trunks and brush. Nothing. Just that sound, low and patient, following each rise and fall of my chest. Ellis? I whispered, hating how my voice cracked. The breathing stopped. The forest was silent. I stayed frozen for what felt like hours, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Then, from deeper in the woods, came the soft drag of something moving. Long strides, heavy but not running. Walking, following. I bolted. Branches whipped my arms. Roots snagged my boots. I didn't care. I didn't stop until the trees broke and my truck came into view. I threw Ellis's hat onto the seat, fired the engine, and tore out of there, gravel spitting under the tires. The whole drive back, I felt it. The same way you feel a car tailgating you at night. You don't even have to look, you just know. Something was pacing me through the woods. When I finally pulled into the station, the sun was bleeding orange over the ridgeline. Safe. I should have felt safe. But inside, Ellis's desk was still empty. His locker was open, his keys still hanging. I sat in the silence for a long while, gripping that damn hat in my hands, until the radio crackled. Static at first, then a voice, faint, distant. Help. I froze, pressed the receiver to my ear. I can't. They won't let me sleep. It was Ellis. I swear it was his voice. Ragged, breaking, like he was running while he spoke. Ellis, where are you? I shouted into the mic. Static swallowed the reply, but 3 words made it through. Don't close eyes. Then silence. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Couldn't. His voice looped in my skull, shredding what little sanity I had left. Don't close your eyes. But the body always wins. On the 3rd night, sometime past 3 a.m, my head dropped onto the desk. I didn't even realize I'd gone under until the noise woke me. The sound of a zipper again. This time not from outside, from right under the desk. I jerked back, chair crashing against the wall. My flashlight beam shook over the floor. The bottom drawer of the desk, shut tight when I'd fallen asleep, was unzipping itself. Not sliding open, not breaking apart. Actually unzipping like canvas. Threads splitting in a slow, straight line. And something inside was pressing forward. The bulge rose higher, the desk groaning under the strain. My light caught movement beneath the wood. Long fingers testing the gap, nails dragging against the inside. I backed toward the door, pulse screaming in my ears. The zipper opened wider, teeth parting, smooth as breath, until an eye peered through. Not human, not animal. Too large, too black. And it was looking straight at me. The drawer exploded outward. The drawer slammed across the floor, splintering wood and sending papers flying. Whatever had been inside, whatever that eye belonged to, crawled out. I saw the whole thing then. Tall, thin, limbs bending wrong, moving with a fluid that shouldn't exist in anything alive. Its skin glistened like wet charcoal. It had no mouth I could see, yet I felt the sound of its breathing, rattling the air like 1,000 hollow chests exhaling at once. I stumbled backward, tripping over my own boots. My flashlight beam trembled across the room, catching on its shoulders, then its head tilting. Unnaturally. Like it was examining me as much as I was examining it. The hair on my arms stood straight, my teeth clenched. I wanted to scream, but my throat was locked. It moved closer. I forced myself to raise the flashlight, aim the beam directly at it. The moment the light touched its chest, it jerked back violently, recoiling like fire had struck it. That was when I realized. The light hurt it. Not just scared it, it burned. I grabbed the nearest office lamp, threw it on the floor. Fluorescent glow flared across the room, the creature shrieking, or at least a sound that made the walls vibrate. It staggered back into the shadows. I could breathe again. for a second. But that second was a lie. I heard the zipper first. Behind me. My jacket, half unzipped when I had fallen asleep, was now moving on its own. The pull tab sliding like fingers. Then came the whispers. Not from the creature. From everywhere. The walls, the ceiling, the floorboards. Words I couldn't understand, but felt like they were burrowing into my head. Sleep, sleep, sleep. I slammed the door shut, threw my weight against it. My ears rang, my vision blurred. The whispers crescendoed into one deafening note, and then silence. I dared a glance. The office was empty. Not a shadow moved. Not a scrap of wood stirred. My flashlight lay on the ground, still trembling. I laughed. Short, bitter, insane. It had to have been exhaustion, delirium. I'd been awake for days, chasing disappearances, haunted by Ellis's voice. The forest, the shadows, the zipper, all of it, it had to be in my head. I sank into the chair, tried to steady my pulse. I even dared to close my eyes for a moment. Just a moment. And that's when I saw it. Not in the office, not through the shadows. In my mind's eye, I saw campers in the Smokies, stretched across their tents, bodies unnaturally still, faces blank, pale in the moonlight. And above them, the things, tall, thin, crawling over each campsite like mist, unzipping sleeping bags, standing at the edge of tents, watching, waiting. I opened my eyes with a jolt. The office was still empty, or so it seemed. Then the zipper moved again. Behind the filing cabinet this time. Slow, deliberate. The faintest scrape of metal against metal. Testing, probing. I grabbed the lamp and hurled it, smashing the cabinet's side. The zipper stopped. The whispering vanished. But a shadow shifted, too tall to be the cabinet itself. I backed toward the door. My foot hit the threshold wrong. I almost fell. Then I saw a shape in the corner, taller than the ceiling, limbs folding into impossible angles. It leaned forward slowly, tilting its faceless head. And my radio crackled, static first, then a familiar voice. Don't sleep, Ellis. The thing in the corner paused, head tilting as if listening. Don't sleep. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. The door behind me was inches away. I could make it. I could escape. But the shadow, whatever it was, moved impossibly fast. Limbs unfolding and refolding in ways no human body could manage. 1 second, it was in the corner. The next, it blocked the exit. Its faceless head leaned toward me. The air shifted, the smell of wet soil and pine choking my lungs. I raised my flashlight again, shaking, and it shrieked, not a normal sound, but the screech of something ancient, something the forest itself might have birthed. I backed into a wall. My chest slammed against the metal filing cabinet. A zipper sound was behind me now, unrelenting, testing my sanity. And I realized, no matter what I did, no matter how fast I ran, no matter how bright the light, it was patient. It had been hunting for years, and I was next. I don't remember how long I stayed pressed against that wall, shivering, chest heaving, flashlight flickering in my grasp. Every sound, the wind scraping through the trees outside, the creak of the office, floorboards, even my own heartbeat felt amplified. It was like the forest had grown inside the building, alive and watching. I had no choice but to move. The thing, whatever it was, didn't chase. Not like a predator. It just waited, patient, sliding silently across the floor when my gaze wavered. Every time I blinked, it seemed closer. Every shadow flickered unnaturally, dancing in the beam of my failing flashlight. I stumbled into the hallway, papers clinging to my boots. The whispers followed me, rising in pitch, words threading through my mind. I tried to block them, tried to shout, but the sounds formed sentences I couldn't understand. Sleep, come, surrender. I ran to the stairwell, the kind that led to the bunk room where I sometimes slept during long patrols. My hands were slick with sweat. My jacket was unzipped, the zipper moving on its own, testing me, teasing me. I reached the top landing and paused, trying to catch my breath. The dorm rooms were all empty, except one. The door was cracked open, soft yellow light spilling out. And inside, I saw them. Campers. They weren't alive. Not really. Faces pale, bodies slack, blankets pulled over their chests like they'd merely fallen asleep. But the air around them buzzed with tension, like static before a storm. One of them stirred, only slightly. A finger twitched, but it was enough to send a stab of fear straight through me. Then I saw it. Behind the campers, a shadow stretched taller than the ceiling, limbs bending, folding, twisting. Its head tilted toward me. No face, no eyes, no mouth, just darkness with a subtle pulse, like something breathing behind skin that didn't exist. I froze. The air thickened, smelled of wet moss and iron. My lungs burned as if the atmosphere itself had weight. My flashlight flickered and dimmed, and when the beam returned, the shadow was closer. 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 I wanted to move, wanted to scream, wanted to throw the flashlight at it and run. But my legs refused. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet I stayed, rooted in terror. The campus started to stir more. A moan escaped from one throat. Soft, almost human, almost pleading. But then it stopped. Their bodies stiffened, jerking unnaturally. Their eyes opened, black, hollow, staring, and they looked at me. I turned to run, but the shadow was already across the floor, faster than any human could move. It pressed closer, folding its limbs into tighter, impossible angles, each step bending reality. My heartbeat felt like it would burst from my chest. I slammed into the far wall, tripping over a loose floorboard. My flashlight went skittering across the landing, beam bouncing against the walls. In that brief moment, I saw hundreds of eyes. Camper eyes, shadow eyes, nothing eyes, reflecting in every surface. Watching, judging, waiting. I scrambled for the door at the end of the hall. My fingers brushed the handle, slick with sweat. I twisted it, and it wouldn't budge. Locked? No, not by me. Something had turned the knob from the other side. I pounded on the door, desperate. "Let me out!" My voice cracked. "Please." The whispers swelled again, now inside my skull, in my bones. Sleep, sleep, surrender. And then, behind me, the zipper sound returned. Slowly, methodically, from my jacket, now inching up toward my neck. I spun. My flashlight caught the shadow mid-step, collapsing space and time around it. It leaned forward, impossibly close. I could feel the cold seeping off it, the smell of wet earth and death filling the stairwell. I tried to swing the flashlight, tried to strike. It passed through the shadow, like I wasn't even there. My arm ached. My skin tingled. It was real. It was solid in every sense I feared, but also unreal. Impossible. Then the campers moved. All of them. Together. Stiff. Jerky. Bending in ways human bodies shouldn't bend. Their hollow eyes fixed on me. Their mouths opened, but no sound came out. Just air that smelled of soil and decay. I stumbled back, landing on my hands and knees. My flashlight rolled again, beam bouncing along the wall. That's when I saw it clearly. A shape, twisting, crawling, folding, moving through the ceiling like it wasn't confined by walls, by gravity, by logic itself. It was coming for me, and I realized I had nowhere to run. I don't remember exactly how I got to the ground floor. My legs were trembling, raw, as if they'd forgotten how to hold me upright. My flashlight had rolled under a desk, beam bouncing weakly, illuminating fragments of papers, splintered wood, the black smear of dirt from footprints that shouldn't exist. The whispers were louder now, inside my skull, beneath my skin. They tugged at me. Sleep. Surrender. Let go. I stumbled into the parking lot. Moonlight cut through mist, curling along the asphalt. My truck was there, doors locked, engine off. Safe. Or so I thought. The moment I touched the handle, I saw them. Campers, hundreds of them, scattered along the ridge of the parking lot and stretching toward the tree line. They weren't moving like people. Their limbs bent at wrong angles. Their eyes, black hollows, stared straight through me. They didn't run, didn't scream. They just watched, waiting. I stumbled back. My flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness pooled around me, heavier than ever. From the tree line came a sound, soft at first, then growing. Zippers, hundreds of zippers, unzipping jackets, sleeping bags, tents, slowly, deliberately, like a symphony of metal teeth cutting through fabric. Then it emerged, the shadow, taller than a man, impossibly thin, moving like water. It stepped forward, limbs folding and unfolding, bending through the space, as if gravity were nothing. Its head tilted, faceless, blacker than the night. Yet I could feel it staring straight into me. I wanted to run, tried to. My boot struck the asphalt, but I felt something tugging at my shoulders, like invisible hands. The wind carried whispers now, louder than anything I'd ever heard. Sleep. Surrender. Come. I stumbled, fell to my knees. My arms were scratched, torn by unseen branches, the cold dew soaking through my uniform. I tried to pull myself up. My truck door was inches away. If I could just reach it, but I couldn't. The campers moved, slowly, their heads turning in unison toward me, hollow eyes shining faintly in the moonlight. I could feel them closing in, pressing closer. The whispers in my skull were deafening now. And then it spoke. Not in words, not in any human sound. A vibration inside my chest, felt in my bones. Sleep, I screamed. Tried to swing my arms, but the whirl felt liquid. My body refused to obey. The shadow leaned closer, limbs bending in ways impossible, brushing against me, though nothing solid seemed to touch. My chest heaved, lungs burning. I saw my flashlight. A weak beam bounced off the pavement. I grabbed it, pointed it at the shadow, and the creature recoiled, shrieking, or something like it. The campers froze, but then the shadow skipped to the side, and I saw it. Behind it, something worse. Smaller shapes crawling from the forest. Hundreds of hands, faces, unzipping, slithering, unhuman. Each one reaching for the sleeping campers. The ones I'd tried to protect. The creek campers, the tent campers, Ellis. Every missing person. Hollow eyes turned toward me. I wanted to run. My legs were like lead. My ears rang. My throat a raw, screaming wound. And then I saw the zipper. Slow, deliberate, moving along my sleeve. My uniform jacket tugging at me, trying to pull me down, into the shadows, into the forest. I fought it, scratched at the sleeves, kicked the asphalt. But my hands felt weak, useless, trembling. The whispers grew louder, filling my mind with shapes, visions of the campers lying still, stretched across the ground, unblinking, unbreathing. And above them, the shadow, bending space and time around it, feeding, taking, unrelenting. I tried to call for help. My radio was dead. My phone gone. I was alone. And then the shadow spoke again. This time, in a voice that was all voices, all around me. Sleep or stay forever. I fell backward, stomach hitting the wet asphalt. My flashlight rolled out of reach, dim beam shaking across the forest line. The campers advanced. Hollow eyes locked on me, limbs bending, unhuman, crawling closer. The whispers filled me, filled the air, filled the night. I scrambled backward, slipping, trying to reach my truck, trying to escape. But something, cold, unseen, clamped around my ankle, pulled, hard. I screamed, and in that instant, I realized the truth. It didn't matter how far I ran, how fast I drove, how much I fought. Once they wanted you, they never let go. I don't remember how long I struggled on the asphalt. My ankle locked in something cold and unyielding. Shadows pressing closer. Panic made my movements frantic, wild, but it was useless. My flashlight had rolled too far away, sputtering its last light across the creeping forest line. The campers, no, the things wearing the campers, moved in perfect unison, silent except for the whispering. Echoing in my skull. Sleep. Surrender. Come. I clawed at the asphalt, the bark, anything. My uniform jacket tugged at my torso, pulling me toward the forest edge. I felt the teeth of cold wind on my neck, smelled damp earth and something metallic, like blood or iron, like the soil itself was rotting alive. Then I saw it. The shadow. The main one, taller than any man, folding in on itself, limbs bending in impossible angles. Its head tilted toward me, faceless. For a brief, impossible moment, I could feel it thinking, calculating, waiting. I made a choice. I yanked my flashlight free from the puddle it had fallen in. I clicked it on, full beam straight at the shadow. It shrieked, or at least the air around it shrieked, a sound like grinding metal and hollow lungs. The campers froze mid-step, the forest quieting instantly. The zipper along my jacket twitched violently and then stopped. I ran. Through the mist, across wet ground, toward my truck. The shadow recoiled, folding back into the trees, but not gone. Its presence lingered, heavy and patient. The campers remained where they were, eyes hollow, watching, waiting. I slammed into the truck, doors locked, engine roaring to life. My hands shook so violently I could barely shift the gears. The forest whipped past, black shapes moving in the periphery, always just out of reach. But when I reached the ridge, the morning light spilling over the mountains, I saw it. The campers, hundreds of them, scattered across the ridges and valleys, all motionless. And in the trees, faint, impossibly tall, the shadows loomed, folding and unfolding, unblinking. I drove straight through the park, past the areas where I'd seen them vanish, where Ellis's hat had lain, past the creek campsites. Nothing followed, for now. I made it to town and stopped at the first diner with lights on. Sat there trembling, sipping coffee that did nothing to warm my hands, watching shadows shift outside the window, knowing they were patient, waiting, marking every tent, every sleeping form in the mountains. I thought I was safe, but sleep caught me anyway, and when I woke, I wasn't in the diner. Not exactly. The smell of wet earth filled my nostrils. Pine needles stuck to my arms. My jacket was half unzipped, teeth of the zipper glinting. And in the distance, moving between the trees, were shapes I recognized. Campers, shadows, hollow eyes fixed on me. I tried to rise. My legs refused. My chest ached, lungs burning. The whispers started again, inside my skull, inside my bones. Sleep, surrender, come. I understood then, with a clarity that made my blood run cold. The forest had claimed me. Even here, even away from the Smokies, I was not free. Wherever I went, Wherever I tried to hide, they would find me. And yet, somehow, I survive. For now. I tell this to you because maybe if someone knows, if someone is warned, they might have a chance. If you ever camp in the Smoky Mountains, don't sleep. Because once they find you in the dark, once your eyes close, even for a moment, you never wake up. And if you think that's a story, a legend, a warning for the gullible, I'll tell you this. I've seen what waits for sleepers. I've felt the cold tug of its arms, heard the whispers wrapping around my mind, and I can still feel it even now. Always patient, always waiting. I don't know how long I have left before it comes again, but I can hear it. Zipper